What's up everybody, I am back with another video, and if you're new here, my name is John. I make a bunch of self-improvement content to live a healthy lifestyle and level up. So if that kind of stuff interests you, definitely like and subscribe. And also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be notified every single time I post. Alright, so for this video is going to be a part 2 to a previous video I did. I'll put a link down in the description below if you missed it. It was called How to Handle Hate. So that video was kind of like the more nice guy approach, but the tips I'm going to include in this video are going to be a little bit more direct. Because let's be honest here, we've all been in situations when we're dealing with a heckler and they're just being extremely rude and obnoxious, and I'm sure you've been told to turn the other cheek, but there are going to be times when you just simply cannot ignore it and you have to acknowledge their presence and just stand up for yourself. And so for this video, I'm going to give you 5 more responses on how to handle hate, but like a Sigma. In case you don't know what a Sigma is, basically it's kind of like an alpha, but they're a little more stoic and to themselves and more of the lone wolf type of guy. So yeah, I guess this list can kind of apply to alphas as well, but Sigma males are just trending right now. So, and I know I said this in my first video I did on this topic, but I'm going to say it again here because it's very important. But the key within all these tricks and responses is just to stay calm. The moment you act out of paroxysm and give in to your emotions is the moment that you lose and they win. Those who are able to anger you control you, and you definitely don't want that. Alright, so for the first response on how to handle hate like a Sigma, I'm going to recycle this one from the first video I did on this topic, and it's just to act like you can't hear them and ask them to repeat themselves. So the point of this response is to diminish the joke of the heckler by acting like you can't hear them and asking them to repeat themselves several times. So when you ask them to repeat themselves, it kind of flips the pressure onto them, because everyone knows that when you tell a joke for the second time, it's never as funny as the first time you say it. When they say it the second time, the joke is not going to be as funny, the people around are not going to laugh as hard, and then you could really put the pressure on them by asking them to repeat themselves 3, 4, even 5 times, because now the heckler is the one that's feeling insecure. Now he's feeling like he's not speaking loud enough, he's not taking control of the situation as he thought he would in his head, and now so he thinks he's going to have to speak louder, kind of project his voice a little. His emotions are all out of whack and he's trying his best to actually deliver the joke. Maybe his voice is going to be a little shaky, he's not going to sound as confident anymore, and who knows, maybe if you're lucky he'll even let out a little voice crack. And then that's when the joke gets flipped onto him. But if you're going to use this tactic, the key is to genuinely sound like you actually didn't hear them. Because if you don't genuinely sound like you weren't listening and you're just being sarcastic, the bully will most likely not be that dumb and he'll sense your sarcasm. And if the guy is really off the rails, he might get aggressive and get up and start approaching you, and you definitely don't want that and want to try and avoid any physical confrontation. So if you're going to use this response, you have to genuinely sound like you didn't hear them in order to actually flip the script on them and to get the most out of this tactic. So moving on to number 2, my next response for this video is to just play along with the joke. And I know this one sounds counterintuitive, but let me give you an example on how this actually works. So for the example in my case, I forgot exactly which video it was, but basically someone commented on a YouTube short that they got triggered by. They told me something along the lines of me never being touched by a girl in my life except for my mom. So obviously they're insulting me here and trying to get me to react so we can go into a bitter banter back and forth. But instead of me insulting them back like how they would hope I would react, I just simply responded with a sarcastic remark saying, "Wow, how are you gonna put me on blast like that?" And then they just never responded back. I actually do this quite often, and 9 out of 10 times they never respond back. Why? Because they didn't expect you to play along with the joke with them. They expected you and wanted you to lose control, get into your feelings, and just throw an insult back at them. They expect you to be defensive, but the moment that you jump in on roasting yourself with them, they'll just immediately become discombobulated. Sometimes I even just simply respond by just saying, "Thank you." And by responding this way is a little more gratifying because you're not actually jumping into the joke with them and self-deprecating yourself, but you're just simply brushing it off. Now this response really annoys them when you use it, because by simply saying thank you, you've acknowledged that you heard them, but their petty remarks simply weren't worth wasting your breath over. By responding this way, you'll look like a stoic man with dignity and a man on a mission who has bigger fish to fry. Alright, so moving on to my next response, number 3 of this video, is to just counter with logic and rationality. Now this is oftentimes very easy because most hate comments root from emotional instability and not practical thought. So more often than not, it's very feasible to actually counter with verifiable statements of your own to invalidate and depose the wild claims by the heckler. Which leads me on to my next response, number 4 of this video, and that is to put them on the spot and ask them to elaborate their irrational claims. So when you ask the hater to justify and explain their wild claims, they're not actually going to be able to do that. So when you put them on the spot, they're going to try and seek a way out of it, take tortuous turns out of the conversation, and when they try and stray away from the conversation, just point that out out, redirect them back to the original topic. No matter how hard they keep trying to change the subject, you just have to keep repeating and quoting what they said. Keep pressing them and tell them to justify their wild claims with facts and logic. Like I said, they won't be able to actually back up their statements, and so the more you put them on the spot, the more apparent their ridiculousness becomes. Alright, so my fifth and final response of this video is to just clap back with clever, witty responses. So in case you don't know what wit is, it's basically just kind of combining humor with intelligence, and then combining those two aspects just overall exudes confidence and charisma. So I put this last on the list for a reason, because this one could be a little difficult to master. Not only do you need an expansive vocabulary, but you'll also need to execute with proper tone, volume, and occasional pauses to give off more of that dramatic effect or suspense when needed. So it's not just simply expanding your vocabulary and learning big words, but how you phrase the words and how you execute, that is key. I personally don't have any specific examples for this because I'm still trying to learn this myself, but honestly you could learn a whole lot from watching Vampire Diaries or the originals, and I know a lot of guys probably don't watch that. I know what you all are going to say, that's for girls, that's a chick flick drama, but honestly, guys can learn a lot of what girls want from those types of shows. Girls obsess over these male characters for a reason, and that is by appealing to their female nature and psychology. But anyways, back to the original topic. So Damon, along with pretty much the rest of the original family in the show, so those are the characters you want to look out for in order to study and emulate their wittiness. Anytime those characters are on screen, it's just pure gold because their masculine presence and witty dialogue is just always on full display. So by watching the Vampire Diaries and the original spin-off, not only will you learn witty responses to tell to haters, but you'll also learn of what girls want, and it's also just a really good show. So it's honestly just a win-win for everyone. Alright, so that was my fifth last tip for this video. Those were 5 responses on how to deal with hate like a Sigma. And like I said, these were the more direct approaches on how to deal with the hatred. But if you haven't seen my first video on this topic, go and check it out. Because although those were the more nice guy approaches, it still is very good to learn, especially those first, because you want to try and avoid any confrontation at first. But in case those tactics still aren't working for you, then that's when you apply these responses. If you enjoyed this video, definitely like and subscribe. And also go subscribe to my second channel. So on this channel that you're watching right now, I talk about male self-improvement. But on my second channel, I react to the dating scene and modern society and its absurdity. And I kind of give my advice over there too. So definitely go and check out my second channel if you haven't already. Alright, so that was it for this video. I hope you learned something of value today. I hope you learned something from my mistakes to better yourself. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.